Truth Bombers Podcast.
Truth Bombers Podcast.
The group chat turned podcast with your hosts, Russ, Lockie, and BJ.
So, boys.
How we doing, boys?
Pretty good.
Are we as positive as always?
Negative.
Extremely positive.
Russell, nice to have you join on a Thursday night show. We know you ducked last week, so as not to have to put $20 in the can with your tip of the week.
Oh, is that when you guys decided to do it when I was at work? And then I got off after the... I thought, it must be great to catch up the lads, talk some footy. What time did we kick off? Oh, no, we did today in work. We just decided not to invite you.
Must be great to be able to go to bed at 7 o'clock on a Thursday night, mate.
What, Thursday night?
Yeah. But didn't you have an early start or something on Friday? That's why you couldn't do the regular Thursday afternoon call, Thursday evening
Yeah,
call.
that ended up changing, but then you were away anyway.
Oh, well, thanks for letting us know, champ.
You said it was Kat's birthday. You couldn't do it.
Yeah, well, we did it.
Champ.
It was Kat's birthday. We did have a good dinner. Thanks for asking. All right. What a way to kick off episode 27. Boys, how are we feeling about our chances against Port? Start with you, Lockie. Big Ben Dixon being named to play. Is he going to be the full forward Tom Lynch hopes to be as he grows up one day, or what are we going to see?
If you remember last season when Charlie Dixon came up against Zirk Thatcher and he threw him around just like a rag doll. So my multi for this week will include Charlie Dixon, 3 in the first half.
Safe bet.
Before anyone else calls it, Port Adelaide to beat Essendon in Adelaide is going to be my lock of the week.
I feel like you can't do that one. That's too much of a guarantee.
I am usually one of the more positive, but look, I mean, I was also the one sitting on the couch coming into the Hawthorn game. We had 5 lates out being like, are we able to forfeit? Are we able to just like not show up? And if we're showing up, like this could be the 100-point drubbing that we've been terrified of all year. Obviously that wasn't the case, but I don't know. Port, like if you were going to have a start 0-5 to a year, you'd want to be Port in the situation. Like the only team really capable of the cellar dwellers actually doing what they've done, and bar their game against Geelong last week, have won 4 in the trot since that point. So they're starting to look pretty good, especially at Adelaide. Good, cool. Russ, thoughts?
I've the boys have sucked me from all hope, to be honest. I'm all done. Every time, and now we get around to Thursday, I'm a bit flat on a Monday, and then there's a little bit of hope brings in by Wednesday. See the team list come out and go, oh look, there's maybe just a little bit of a chance. You know, they got around, everyone got around each other in the club. There's media scrutiny. You know, not this week. I've been sucked dry of hope.
At the start of the season, I definitely wouldn't have thought seeing Mason Redmond and Matt Guelphy as 2 named outs being like that potentially might be our best 2 players that we've now just lost.
Yeah, they're definitely not even in our top 10 best players, in my opinion. But I think they're very important to our side in terms of effort and in terms of like actually giving a bit of a fuck about what we're doing.
Yeah, I reckon they're in our best 10 at the moment in terms of the 22 blokes that are being named to play on the park. They're in the best 10.
Maybe.
No?
Scraping in. Well, if Guelphy, as much as I like what he's done this year, if he's in our best 10 players, we are scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah. Have you not watched the first couple of games of the season, Locke?
I have, unfortunately.
It's exactly where we are.
Mason Redmond out with a 1-week suspension. The club went into bat for him as hard as we've gone into bat for other players getting drubbed out behind the ball this year. Even though he's probably always going to get a week for that, still would have been nice to contest it. I reckon that hit, seeing as Draper got off his clear, unaggravated assault earlier in the year with a $2,000 fine. I reckon there was an argument there to be had for Redmond, given the level of force was pretty fucking minimal. And Nick Bryan being omitted as well. So probably saw that coming with at least one of the two big boys. Andrew Phillips, our boy, has been named on the extended bench. That would make the most sense for me to see Brian out, Phillips in, because if he doesn't come in and Wright continues to have to play ruck, like we're going to go from bad to worse.
Yeah, agreed. I'd like to see Flip in. I've been saying it for weeks, and I know you're a huge fan of him, Benny. I think he gives us a bit of versatility and a bit of mongrel, to be honest.
Interesting. Don't know if you guys saw the post. I think it was from Zero Hanger that did all the ratings for the competition ruck pairs. I think we're 17th, and it's got Draper and Phillips. So Phillips is our number 2 ruckman, a bloke that's played 2 games or 3 games this year, and has been fit and ready to play and not getting picked. Like, no shit, we're at the bottom.
Yeah, and Draper's been a massive disappointment.
Yeah, agree. All right, let's get into it. So the extended bench, I might start with a couple of guys coming back in. Braden Ham's been named on that bench. Jai Caldwell comes back in, only missing 1 week with an AC joint in his shoulder, which is like highly suspicious. Obviously, Flip back in. Harry Jones has been named on the extended bench for what is potentially his first appearance in the seniors this year. And Tex Wanganeen, who was our Medi sub last week. They joined Tom Cutler, Aaron Francis, and Nick Hind on the bench there. I think that's probably stiff for Francis, but I think will be a coin flip between him and Harry Jones, and they'll probably just give Jones the run. Just why not? Nothing to lose.
Yeah, to be honest, like Jones is our future of our forward line, and he played some really good footy last season. I think he'll be a bit rusty, only playing 1 game back in the VFL and then coming back into the AFL side, but he'll be better for the run.
He hasn't lit up in the VFL by all sounds of it. Like he played 1 game, had another niggle, and played 1 game, and then sort of took a week off because he wasn't fit enough to play 2 games in a row. Played last week, kicked 1 goal, couldn't fund the footy for the first half. It'll be interesting to see if they put him on for the full game, knowing that he hasn't been able to make it through many VFL games for this season. But I agree, he needs to play. He's the future.
The game I saw him play, I think, was Easter Sunday. He looked good. He was flying, like not clunking everything, but was flying, like looking pretty good, and then went off in the second half.
Yeah, he does 1 quarter. Like he's good for 1 quarter, and then sort of goes missing for a whole half, and then or plays half a game in the VFL. Like hasn't actually played too many full games at 100% capacity.
One thing I guess, sorry, Benny, one thing I guess our VFL side is smack bang at the bottom of the ladder. So obviously they're not getting a lot of entries into the forward 50, a lot of good entries into the forward 50. So it'd be hard for a forward trying to look good enough to earn a spot back in the side.
Funnily enough, though, we've been leading games by 4 or 5 goals at halftime and then getting done by 50 points in the VFL. So they're getting at least a decent look at it for the first half, but not able to do enough with it, I think. So, all right, let's get through the lineup. There's some interesting selections up forward, which I want to chat through as well, boys. Laverde, Zerk Thatcher comes straight back into fullback. I hope he's not lining up on Charlie Dixon, like you just mentioned, and Jake Kelly. Surely Laverde gets Dixon and Zerk Thatcher gets the one of their smaller, what's his name? Always forget his name when we're on here. Georgiades.
Well, they've got 3 talls if they're going to play them. They've got that other young kid who's a tall. So I think we'll be stretched down back, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're in trouble. I'm just not motivated to be positive about this team anymore. There's just too many holes. Like, I'm so worried. When Zerk Thatcher's back in, I'm worried to begin with, let alone when Charlie Dixon comes back in.
Dyson Heppel at halfback. Jordan Ridley comes back from a week of the COVID protocols, and Zach Reed, who is continuing to get played, who I guess we'd like to see. There's a bunch of interesting conversation around Heppel last week. It might have even been from you, Locke, in terms of moving up to a wing just to see if he can do something because he's just not doing anything in the halfback line.
Yeah.
I can put
think,
him in guts.
In the
yeah,
guts.
I think my call was put him back to the VFL, maybe on a wing.
That's a good one.
named on the wing, we've got Andrew McGrath, Darcy Parish in the center, and Sam Durham on the other wing, who I think needs to lift back to the levels of effort and intensity that he had early in the season. He's definitely dropped off since missing with illness. Ben Hobbs on the flank, Nick Martin at center half forward, Devon Smith on the other flank, who I don't know if he's fit or not. He keeps telling they need to be managed, and then he keeps finding himself back on the list. So surely if he's hurt, and we're talking about playing guys like Harry Jones, who's not in great form either because they're the future, surely Dev sits on the sideline and Wanganeen comes in and has a bit of a crack. And I could say the same for Alec Waterman, who's named in the forward pocket, Peter Wright at full forward, and Archie Perkins in the other pocket, Draper, Merritt, and Shield following the ball. So yeah, the Wanganeen one is that, like, are we playing the future or are we not playing the future? Because out of all the kids that have played this season, he's had probably the least of a look at it, but I almost feel like has done the most given the amount of time that like he's actually had. I thought the game that he did play, he, you know, kicked a goal, got in around it, had a little bit of energy, probably overcommitted, got too excited at times, which, like, you know, you would expect from a young kid. But even as we mentioned last week in the Dreamtime, got 3 minutes to look at it, got done by Francis and could have kicked a Dreamtime goal. I feel like he's showing enough. Like, I feel like he's showing enough in snippets to warrant him actually getting a named on the ground to start.
I don't know if I've seen enough from him yet, to be honest. He hasn't played a full 4 quarters of football for a long time. It'll be interesting to see when he actually plays a couple of games in a row, I guess.
Yeah. To be honest, I reckon the small forward role is probably the hardest role to play. And he's young. I think he just needs to be given, a few games and see what he's capable of. But I think you're spot on, Benny, where it's like he almost looks too eager sometimes when he's going after the ball. And maybe that's something they're trying to address with him. But I'd rather see that than us shirking the contest. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess how do you judge a bloke on playing 4 quarters, Russ, when they keep naming him as Medi-sub and half the time he doesn't get on the ground?
Yeah, exactly. It'd be interesting to see when he plays 4 quarters consistently.
Alec Waterman, like I said, that's an interesting call for me. Between Waterman and Devon Smith, like, you probably give it to Dev Smith because he's a guy with the most amount of games, almost the most amount of experience that we've got in the list. Surely Wanganeen comes in for one of those, and I don't know, or a Francis. I'd rather them play Francis over Waterman if I had to choose between the two.
Waterman's an interesting one. I think he's just going to be a very reliable player, and you never know. Like, I don't know, Myercheck for Collingwood just get given 1-year contracts and would almost lead their goal kicking. I could see that as Waterman, like, he's sort of always just going to be there kicking a goal or two, never really going to tear a game open, or you might think a kid deserves a spot over him, but he's always sort of going to do his role, I think. Set the expectation as just needs to play a part rather than like, oh, he's going to tear this game up.
Well, it was Russ's boy at the start of the year, had him named starting at full forward in the best 22.
That was maybe with the half forward, but yeah. But he's been, you're going to play Dev Smith over him because, you know, we've seen Waters, like, set shot, amazing when it's presented well, but it has to be presented well to him because he's not going to win his own football. He's not going to have that defensive forward 50 pressure that we see Dev can have when he wants to have it. And the delivery into the 50 isn't quite there this year. So I think that's why his numbers are down. I think that's why he goes missing quite a bit because he's never going to win his own ball.
The Port midfield, guys like Boak and Ollie Wines, just like we talk about needing an absolute bull. I reckon they're almost the most bullish, probably just behind Carlton for me in terms of aggression at the ball in the midfield. So it'll be interesting to see if Parish and Merritt can still rack up 35, 40 touches. Because if they do, it'll be a long half back with those dinky handballs because I don't think we're going to be winning much out of the centre.
Yeah. Looking at guys that play for them, like Pal Pepper, obviously you just mentioned Boak and Wines. They've got the young guys starting to run through there a little bit more often. Butters, how hard he is at the ball. Maybe they'll teach him a thing or two.
I'm just having a quick look now at some of their names that are lined up. Aliyah's obviously been much better form. Burn Jones, I reckon, who'll end up picking up like one of our younger sort of half forwards. He'd tail up like a Wanganeen at this point as well. They're a pretty good team. Dumont, Amon, Finlayson obviously tore us up when he was at GWS last year. There's some scary blokes in there that tend to have some of those days where they go after us. I think you mentioned earlier as well, they got Dixon and Marshall, and then either Butters or Rosie to play forward too. They're a good team. Like, I think at the start of the year, I mean, I had us as 5th or 6th, but I had Port getting pretty close to a grand final berth. And on paper, the talent that they've got, like, I still believe they're more than capable of making the 8 and causing a bit of a stir come finals.
Yeah, I think they'll make the 8.
Yeah, I think they'll make the 8 too.
Yeah. All right. Good. So, team selection.
All right, let's take a look at a few things. Reed, good to see him getting a consistent go. Re-signed with the club during the week, which is obviously a great sign. I think he'll play on Marshall. They're both young. They're both tall. I'd be interested to see that matchup. Our forward line is just like a patchwork of has-beens and not quite haves, and isn't it? Haven't been. Yeah, hasn't ever been. So I like Jones coming back in because at least I think like, all right, well, him and Wright are actually going to be in our forward line for the next 5 or 6 years. Yeah. So that'll be really, really good to see them work in tandem.
Do you think Aliyah goes to Peter Wright?
Yes.
Well, that's interesting. I reckon if Jones plays, I wouldn't be surprised if Leah goes to Jones because he's going to be a lot more athletic to keep up with Jones. We know Jones can jump a lot, good hands, jumps and can move around on the ground a bit more. You don't need to put someone like Leah on Peter Wright. He's slow. You can give him to one of the other blokes.
The only thing is their backline's quite small, similar to ours actually. So like a Jonas or one of their other big backmen aren't that tall. So I feel like Aliyah is probably their tallest, most athletic, probably the guy that could go with Ride in the air, and that no one else probably would.
Who's taller, Jones or 2 meter? Is there a big height difference between the two?
Oh, 2 meter Peter's massive. Jones probably isn't far off, but he'd be 195 maybe.
Okay.
There's a lot of size not a lot of size, a lot of experience and a lot of all Australian experience in that poor backline. So if you look at guys like Waterman, Wright, Perkins, Martin, Hobbs, how many games have they got between them? Would it be just 55, maybe 60 at most? Yeah.
Yeah. Wright's got about 50 and he's really boosting the numbers up.
Yeah, the average drags the average right up. Speaking of Zach Reed and his 2-year commitment, good to see Langers sign on for another 4.
Yes.
Number 4. That was probably the highlight of my week, the only really good news to come out of Windy Hill. I was terrified we were going to lose him to Hawthorn. Like, from what I was kind of reading and seeing, like, they were super into him. He's quickly become like one of my favorite players. We've talked about his set shot. We've talked about his size in terms of being a bit of that bigger body mid. Like if he's fit and ready, that's almost where I'd be throwing him, right in the midfield, just as a big body, run straight lines. But glad to see that he's got another 4 years on the board. I wonder if that's been part of the conversation to get him to stay, is some sort of promise there of playing a little bit more time in the mid.
You know what I think?
Oh, sorry, you go off.
I think him getting injured in the first quarter of round 1 boosted his contract talks, because if he had have played the last eight or so weeks, we might have been like, he's just as shit as everyone else going backwards. But because he hasn't been playing, it makes him look better. Like, man, we've missed him.
We might be 7-3 if he'd been playing lock.
Maybe.
Go on, Russ.
Yeah, I reckon I was a bit worried he was going to go to Hawks. I know, like you said, there was talks he really wanted to play in the midfield. We know he came to Bombers as a forward, but, tried really hard to break into that midfield. And obviously, at the moment, we're a bit jammed. Or we thought we were a bit jammed with the midfields. But I was pretty confident. I think we spoke about the last couple of weeks that, seeing him on the bench, he hasn't just taken his injury and, gone to the super box like Stringer has and sort of sat there and watched the team play with all the boys. He's on the bench. He's got the headphones on. He's part of the game day. That's a really positive thing to see that someone's actually going to stick around the club, not just do your rehab and hope for your contract to run out.
Stringer's up there in the box doing the Eddie bets, getting stuck into the pies and chips that are supposed to be strictly for players.
Yeah.
All right, boys. Any other thoughts on the team before we move on to the VFLW?
Yeah, I reckon I'm happy to drop Francis. I know everyone else is happy about him, and this experiment of being sort of opposed to, I guess, from round one. And I know you blokes are pretty happy with him in the forward line. For me, I don't know. I'm happy to give Jones a run at it rather than Francis or try a few other things. I don't think he's really delivered that much that we're going to miss him if he's out of that forward line.
Francis plays ahead of Waterman for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. All right. Final thought. Good job. Good chat. The girls are following on their merry way, still undefeated. They've had 2 draws, Russ. You might have missed that if you haven't caught back from last Thursday's episode.
Well, they didn't even know when it was up.
Friday morning. It went, they beat the Saints by 10 points, so a little closer than we're used to, but still coming away with the win there. So they continue on. Obviously, the AFLW season with the Essendon AFLW team will start before the VFLW team has even finished their finals campaign. But that is looking good too. We've had a number of new signings in the last couple of weeks. I'm just trying to pull it up now. Just chat amongst yourselves for a second.
Well, I want to put it to a vote that we should do the AFLW results at the start of our Thursday night chat. So at least we start on a positive note. Thoughts, Russ?
Yeah, I'd come in a bit more chipper if we were talking about some wins, that's for sure.
All right, noted. We'll circle back to it. So yeah, good on the girls. They're crushing it. Look forward to actually seeing some black and red in the finals this year and try to get down there for that one. Footy tips. Who was your lock last week, Russell?
I don't know. You didn't tell me you were recording, so I didn't turn up to that episode to tip. Who would it have been? Melbourne over North, as called by Lockie? No, who did I tip last week? I think I would have gone the Saints. You had a good week. You hit 7. Not bad from you. That's what I averaged, 7 for the season. We all hit 7 this week, but I think differently. Locke, you had a couple of strange ones, didn't you?
Well, unfortunately, I went with Sydney over Blues, and then it got to Sunday, and I'm like, I need to make up a tip, so I went Hawks over Lions. You and Russ both did exactly that. It's so annoying. That was such an annoying game. And then Freo and Hawthorn really ruined my perfect streak. Well, I was thinking Pies over Freo as well, but I just couldn't quite commit. Yeah, fair enough. And this week, what are we thinking? Well, so I can't pick what? I already shotgun them. A lot of the games are pretty one-sided, to be honest. Carlton, I'll go Brisbane. Thoughts on Carlton Collingwood? I reckon it's going to be a good game. I reckon it's going to be really good. I was saying to Locke earlier, Russ, if you guys are free on Sunday and you want to come around, we'll just watch that game. It'll be fucking way more interesting than ours. Yeah, agreed. Let me go with Suns over Hawthorn in a close one. Ooh, and that's in Darwin, isn't it? Yeah. Russell? I'll go Brisbane over GWS. I'm going to go Sydney over Richmond at the SCG. They've lost 4 in a row. They need to win that game. That's a tough game to pick between.
Yeah, I think the Tigers will. If it was in Melbourne, I would pick the Tigers.
Yeah, same.
But I think the Swans have a bit to prove and a bit to play for. They're like, it's on the line. It's a statement game to be like, we're here to play, not just fade away. And although well, Freo have the D's, I think they're in a similar situation as well. They've lost a couple of on the trot now that they shouldn't be losing to the Magpies and to the Hawks. Neither team in the top 10. Got to win those ones.
I reckon if the Melbourne game was in Melbourne Fremantle, if that was in Fremantle, I probably would be inclined to have a sneaky bet on Freo to pull that one off, to be honest. But the fact it's in Melbourne, they don't travel well.
Unless it was raining.
Yeah.
All right. Lovely, boys. Any final thoughts? Any closing notes?
We're going to fucking get absolutely smashed. The only luck that we have is apparently it's supposed to be pouring down in Adelaide at the moment. It's supposed to be raining for the rest of the week. So we know that we don't play good in the dry weather. We play even worse in the wet weather. So we're in for a tough day.
I can think of a positive, Russ, and that's that the wet weather will drag Port down to our level, and it'll just be a shit contest on both sides.
Hopefully it's a similar weather condition to what Port and St Kilda played in Cairns.
Yeah.
Good for our percentage to lose by less than 60. If we
go on. Sorry, what was that?
There you go.
One thing I wanted to sort of talk about was like the mid-season draft. And supposedly we're looking at another midfielder or two, like out of a couple of midfielders. Do you guys agree with the thought of choosing the best player for your pick, or choosing the player that you more desperately need?
I think it's different for mid-season draft versus the regular draft. I reckon if regular, you end of season draft, you pick the best player. If you've got a first round pick, you pick the best player available. Mid-season draft, you pick what you need for the season.
I disagree. I agree with your rationale, but I almost think the other way around. I think we've got an opportunity now that we didn't expect to have, both in terms of the pick we get and the position or the availability on the list. I think you get the most talented player available, and then see what you can do. If someone comes in as a gun mid or a gun forward, how often do we see players come into the AFL as a key defender or a key forward, and they end up switching roles or playing around? I think we want to go after the best available talent, particularly mid-season. We're not going to get pick 3. Oh, we might get pick 3, I guess, at the end of the year, but this is a decent opportunity to get a pretty high pick. This will be our highest pick in how long?
Yeah, but it's a different kind of pick. Pick 3 is at the end of the year is completely different to pick 3 in the middle of the season. We're talking about guys that weren't picked up in last year's draft, haven't been picked up in it, or have been released by other clubs. You know what I mean? People are being overlooked, and they've shown some form in state leagues.
Yeah, you're also, I guess, looking at guys
cream of the crop of the next generation.
You're looking at guys who are more proven in mid-season than the end of or the start of the year, though. Or end of the year.
Proven in VFL, we know that doesn't always correlate into AFL.
Let me ask you this. Do you think VFL correlates more to AFL or TAC Cup?
TAC Cup, it's the whole generation. I'd rather take the best TAC Cup player than the best VFL player. Yeah, for sure.
Interesting.
How many people have come from the VFL and gone on to be, absolute superstars? Yeah, a handful. How many people have come from TAC Cup number 1 draft picks and then gone on to be superstars?
You mean Jack Watts or
Yes.
Aaron Ray?
Yeah, look, there's people. It doesn't always work out. It's on a science, but you're going to get a bigger percentage of number 1 draft picks go on and be superstars than guys that are picked up from the VFL.
I agree with you, Russ, but also think you can get a diamond in the rough. So Jai Newcomb got picked up for Hawks last year in the mid-season, and he's having a great year.
You can't tell me that Will Snelling's the number 3 would go number 3 in the national draft at the end of the season.
No, but I think he was a great pickup for.
I'm not disputing there's gems out there and there's big pickups, but the question was, who do you pick up? I think there's a big difference between the mid-season draft and the end of season draft when you're picking up the talent of that generation of that year.
I like to see it fired up, Russ. I like this side of you.
Yeah.
Because the reason I brought up this question was because I feel like we just keep going after mids, or the talk is like, oh, we're looking at midfielders. How many midfielders have we got in our side? It's ridiculous. I could name, I think, 12 midfielders in our team. And it's like, how do you fit them all in? How do you keep them like interested in staying in the club if they're not getting a role through the middle? I'm talking Merritt, Parrish, Shield, Stringer, Caldwell, Hobbs, Perkins, Langford. Maybe we could go into the wingers. Like they're supposedly all midfielders. How do you fit them all in?
I think the problem is they're all the same site. They're all the same kind of midfielders, except for Langers. They're all just ball magnets, and they're all guys that go after the ball. We need some big bodies or some outside mids that sort of stick away from the contest a little bit. I don't think it's the fact we have too many midfielders. I think we have too many of the same midfielder.
I think Stringer, when fit, is that inside bull. And then Langford obviously is that bigger body that can run through there as well. But if we pick up another big-bodied mid, I don't know. I think the balance of our team is wrong. It's like we need a small forward. We need, as you said, maybe a wingman.
Large forward. We need a large forward too.
We need Jones, I think, can be that player. Just needs.
I don't know. I was hot on Jones at the start of the year, but like I'm terrified he's being managed by the high performance team the same way they managed our Joe Dano. That's what my fear is with Jones. So it's like we've got one that has potential, but like, have we actually got one?
Yeah.
Does it eventuate?
Well, fingers crossed that it's Wright and Jones is the 1-2 punch, and then there's guys like Stringer who stays fit, and we get Wanganeden who becomes a great small forward, and
Snelling,
Langford,
Guelphy.
Yeah.
Perkins. What are we going to do with Nick Cox?
I forgot it even existed until you said him. I haven't thought about Nick Cox in 3 weeks.
He's avoided surgery, but he's in the moon boot. I had a message from Bill today being like, they better tape him to the fucking bench press for the next 8 weeks. Completely agree. Do you think if they could put 10 or 15 kilos on him, could he be a key position player, or is he always just going to be like, could he be a Dustin Fletcher?
I'd rather see him out down back than forward.
Down back?
Yeah. Stop trying to put everyone forward. We have too many people trying to convert them into forwards. I don't understand.
You're just trying to get the confidence up by letting them kick a couple goals.
Yeah.
And they get the yips. And they kick
if Reed is the player we think he's going to be, he is that fullback. Do we need another tall back?
For another, yeah.
So yeah. I'm not talking this season. I'm talking next year. Like this year is a non-issue anymore.
I don't necessarily think we need like a tall back, but I would love like a Mick Martin or like a guy that can like wrestle a Tom Hawkins and not just get brushed out of the way. I want a gorilla. We need a gorilla and to put it fullback.
Gorillas don't play blue-collar football with a smile on their face.
Well, that's right. And that's why we're in the position that we're in. That's why we're not attracting any gorillas.
Yeah, like Reed, I think, fills that role. He just needs time.
I think Nick Cox should retire so he gets out of the drug testing protocols, juice him to the gills for a 12-month period, and then bring him back next year out of retirement. Let him come on at like 106 kilos, 2 meters tall, just enormous boy. And imagine the anger of being after being on like trend for a year. He's so angry. His aggression would be through the roof. Like, this has got to be it. This is the plan.
That's where we're at. Juicy.
Yeah, it's basically 2014 all over, but we'll remove them from the site so that we don't lose any of our other upcoming draft picks. Anyway, all right, boys, pleasure to talk to you both. Sunday afternoon.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you want to come? Do you want to come early? And I think what is it? 3:20 for the Collingwood game. Our game is until 4:40. So if you guys want to pop around a bit early and watch the first half,
Done.
awesome. About 2:00.
Ish.
Lovely. You bringing a cobworth?
No, I'm cobbed out.
Cobbed out. Easy. I see you Sunday.
All right. See you, lads.